we really are believers in this business of, if we're not going to ask someone's opinion or take advice if we're not fully going to apply it. So we're conscious of who we take advice from, not just in this area of the business, but in all areas. If we believe in what you guys do and your methodology, if you say we need to provide creative volume, we are going to give it a shot. So we really just trusted in your guys' methodology, in putting our in terms of creative output and all of the best practices. We went all in on it, and it worked, and we started to see results actually instantaneously. I know that might not be the case for everyone, but we were very fortunate in the position that we had some sort of low-hanging fruits which were easily picked up.
If you're a D2C founder who's sick of losing chargebacks, then you'll love ChargeFlow. Their AI-powered system recovers chargebacks on autopilot, and the best part is that you only pay when they win your disputes. If not, you won't pay a dime. Ready to add bottom line revenue on autopilot? Get your first 100 chargebacks handled absolutely free. Just visit chargeflow.io and enter the code CTC100 after activation. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Ecommerce Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Gaffin, Director of Digital Product Strategy here at Common Thread Collective. And I'm joined today by a very special guest, calling all the way from merry old England. It's Mr. Jack Zambakides. He's the CEO of D Louise, which is a jewelry brand, one of our Growth Accelerator clients. And what we wanted to bring Jack on to talk with us about today is essentially what it takes to grow from 7 figures to 8 figures, as they're kind of on pace to do after having joined our Growth Accelerator program. So before we get into that, Jack, how's it going, man?
Yeah, really well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Richard. I'm a big believer in all the guys at CTC and what you guys talk about. So hopefully good, I can give you back some value for all the value you guys have given us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start off then with you. Just tell me a little bit more about yourself and about the D Louise brand, kind of the story there.
Yeah, so we turned 4, the brand turned 4 in January. It was a lockdown, sort of the tail end of lockdown business. So we obviously didn't know too much about e-commerce, that we launched a business in January, particularly jewelry. But it was launched with myself and my fiance now, Olivia. So she's sort of the face of the brand. She's the one who's got the real passion for jewelry itself. My passion lies more in e-commerce, in business. So we work really well. We're a total yin and yang if you met us. Mm-hmm. When she first said, I want to launch a business, I want to start a jewelry business, in her head, she's thinking these beautiful designs she can make. In my head, I'm thinking strong gross margins, easy to ship, and knowing the power we can have with e-commerce. So we complement each other really well. So we started it 4 years ago. First 2 years were just very much herself, maybe 1 or 2 employees, but we had a really strong Black Friday in, I think it was 2022. And I was like, you know what, this could be a proper business. So from that point, I went full time and really committed myself to it and trying to learn everything e-commerce, and fortunately managed to put one foot in front of each other this far.
Yeah. So talk to me about then, obviously it sounds like, given the kind of like the way that you joined or decided that like, hey, there's something here, we want to grow this. Where were you guys at immediately prior to joining our Growth Accelerator program? And also like about what time frame was that?
Yeah, so I think we've been with the accelerator since the start of it joining. But I think in that sort of the level of where we were, business just feels like it's on stilts is the way I'd probably describe it, in terms of it's rocky. You're very much reliant on sort of a big product drop, or you go into Black Friday and you're really trying to make moments. And what we really needed is just sort of stability in the business. It allows you sort of build the foundations, obviously build out the team. You can really start to make educated decisions. And I think that's sort of what we craved and what we needed. I'd obviously been a follower of your guys' content and understanding like the 4-quarter accounting and learning all of those, the 4 peaks theory, things like that. So we started to try adopt as much as we could, but we needed what would be the things which would then go take us from sort of that stilts, like how can we turn it into more of a proper business. And we're still on that journey today. We're definitely a small business in the grand scheme of things, but we're making progress, which is the main thing.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about that transition into stability. So from my understanding from talking to Joy, who heads up our Growth Accelerator program, essentially, it sounds like you were running the account on highest volume pretty much exclusively. And part of the transition over into the CTC methodology was switching that account over to cost cap. So talk to me a little bit about that transition and kind of what happened once that was put in place.
Yeah, so exactly that. I started off when we first started the brand, I had a few I discovered Facebook ads myself in lockdown. And I was like, what is this? Like, I didn't
Yeah.
realize the highs, but I couldn't get my head around that you could run businesses by putting £1 into Meta and getting 3, 4, 5 back.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you continue to scale, like starts getting a bit more complicated than that. But I was spending a lot of my time I call it in the trenches, trying to figure out all these things. And I was by no means an expert, and there's mixed opinions in the industry. But anyone who's had a conversation with Joy knows that his level of understanding, which is obviously aided by all of the work you guys do, second to none in terms of he knows everything there is to know. And I really put all of my faith into him, and I really trusted him. And I know we mentioned it just before starting this call. I actually flew all the way to India to give him my thanks and spend some time with him and really get to know him better on a personal level. But his level of detail, which he looks into things, is far superior to what I was able to do, just because I was trying to do so many different things in the business and trying to make sure we can operate smoothly in a fast growing company. It's not always the easiest.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, and also a situation that I think a lot of entrepreneurs at that level find themselves in, of kind of having to juggle all of the balls, and it's difficult to find somebody who can actually handle that for you. So, okay, so it sounds like, so again, the first step in the transition period was shifting over to general CTC best practices. So talk to me then about like what happened with the account once that was put into place.
Yeah, so things just started going pretty well, in all honesty. Yeah. We really are believers in this business of, if we're not going to ask someone's opinion or take advice if we're not fully going to apply it. So we're conscious of who we take advice from, not just in this area of the business, but in all areas. So we're not going to go and have all these mixed opinions. If we believe in what you guys do and your methodology, if you say we need to provide creative volume, if you say, guys, we need to, we believe this would be a best practice gets rolled, we are going to give it a shot. So we really just trusted in your guys' methodology, in putting our in terms of creative output and all of the best practices. We went all in on it, and it worked. Is the long and short of it. And we started to see results actually instantaneously. I know that might not be the case for everyone, but we were very fortunate in the position that we had some sort of low hanging fruits which were easily picked up.
Yeah. So actually, it's interesting you bring that up, because part of what we say a lot on the podcast and just in our content generally is that scaling on Meta is a good solution for throwing fuel on a fire that's already exists rather than building it from the ground up. And so I think like a lot of the instantaneous success is probably due to the fact that you had a lot of things kind of handled before you actually switched over and kind of brought the Meta account into a best practices situation. So, and I think it's some of what's happened after kind of switching over to the Growth Accelerator has borne that out. So talk to me a little bit about particularly like your approach to growing that basis of organic revenue, even prior to us coming aboard.
Yeah. So this was a big thing for us. And if you were inside these walls of our office, it's something we've been talking about sort of obsessively for the last 12 months. As like traditional, our business was built off performance marketing. It doesn't come naturally to me. And I'm like, I want to push all these platforms as hard as I can. So I had to sort of get my head around and I describe it as more like trying to plant seeds for the future. We went through that period where we did sort of bite the bullet and we were like, right, let's try and invest into it. We've got an amazing story with the brand. The brand's named after Liv's mother, who she sadly lost in 2017. So we've got an amazing story, and the story of Liv in her own is an incredible one and very inspiring. So a lot of it was just how we can try utilize that and use that not just to try and inspire. And as soon as we started storytelling, as soon as we started like simple things, but gifting, succeeding, all the basics, and really trying to apply it, we started, it's not almost instantaneous, but we're starting to reap those rewards now. I'm confident when we look at how we budget each year, we are allocating more dollars into that brand just to try grow our organic presence. But that's been the biggest focus for us and also the biggest unlock.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about how that maybe interacts with putting some of the CTC best practices into place. So one of them is, of course, like we always talk about the 4 peaks of the marketing calendar and that type of thing. So talk about how you incorporated or how you thought about your marketing calendar, building that out once you started with the accelerator program.
Yeah, there's a good story and an interesting one, but it was so I think we joined the accelerator. We had a good 2023. I think we joined the accelerator early 2024, and we knew organic was something we needed to do. We needed to get better at it. We needed to start driving more awareness around the brand, not just being so reliant on paid. So we had this crazy idea of what are all the things we can do. We're a small business, but our budgets aren't actually massive. What are the things we can do? So Liv, who, as I mentioned, she's sort of the face of the brand and the co-founder. The hospice her mum was in, so sadly before she passed, is in Wales, which is in Cardiff is the town. And it's a 6 or 7, or I think it was a 7-day walk, doing a marathon a day.
Oh, wow.
So we raised money for the charity the hospice was in, with a target of about £15,000. And she walked every single day, and we got brand sponsors, and it got picked up in all, obviously, the newspapers, and we had customers join the walk, and they could tell their story if they've been through some sort of loss. The walk is called Walk and Talk. So people are talking about if they've had losses or been through something similar in their family, which is obviously happens to all of us. But it's something we're doing again. It actually starts on Monday next week, but this year it's bigger and better. Like Liv's been on the radio today talking about it. We've got Lululemon as a sponsor. We've been sort of used these like brand and storytelling to complement, and it hasn't required massive budgets and it hasn't required huge effort, but it's just trying to be creative. But that's an example of the walk actually ends on Mother's Day. Mother's Day is a huge period for all jewelry businesses because it's a great giftable product, but it's how we try to tie that into our Q1 peak coming out of the November, December period. So it's just trying to be really deliberate about what are the things we're going to do. Are we going to go after these things? But they're not always going to work. So fortunately, this one last year worked, and I'm very confident in this one. We've had a lot more traction, but as a new business, you have to take some risk. But if you can land it, the upside's normally worth it.
Right. So give me some examples then of attempts at that didn't work.
Yeah. Oh God, there's plenty. I think we're still on this lesson of learning. We have something internally we call the golden circle, and that golden circle it's if you imagine a Venn diagram, so 3 circles. In one, you've got storytelling. So this is like live storytelling. So it's a piece where we can storytell, whether that's an emotional, whether it's around Mother's Day and anything like that. The second is with the product. So if we actually have like product market fit, it's a product our customers generally want, whether that's in fashion or relates to them or in demand. And then last is if we just market that, like brand market that in the right way in terms of the images, the content's great. If we can nail in the middle of that sweet spot, then that's where the magic happens. It's not always easy, and we've released products in the past which maybe hasn't done as well as we originally thought, but equally we've been pleasantly surprised with other things. But it's about the combination of all of those 3 things coming together where that's where we win.
So talk to me then about, just to stay on the topic of peaks. So I noticed, like, clicking through your stat list data, there was a peak in March, which is around Mother's Day, but I noticed that you guys did really well in July and August, which is, for most e-commerce brands, that's kind of the down season. That's the summer doldrums. Talk to us about what happened in July, August to keep revenue up. And not only up, it was pretty much a spike as well there.
Yeah. So for us, we have, just bringing it back to the marketing calendar, we fortunately have the benefit of sort of mid throughout the summer. Our biggest USP with the product is that it is waterproof and it will never tarnish. So we can lean into those in, let's say, the hotter months where people are going on holiday more, maybe people are more exercising more, they're trying to get in shape, that we can lean into those angles. And then obviously as we come back into sort of Q3, but particularly Q4, we'll then change the dynamic to more gifting, because during particularly November, December, a lot of our purchases are now male. They might be influenced by female, but we are, like with our marketing material, we have to be more conscious that we're talking to male. So it's sort of riding these waves throughout the year. But what we try to do is have almost themes for the quarters. So we know that this is sort of our overarching theme, whether that's gifting for Q4, whether that's summer, it's more of we call it you never have to take off. So it's pulling on the angles. You don't have to take your jewelry off as you sweat, as you shower, as you swim in the sea, but really trying to then make sure that the product aligns with that the branding events align with that the influencers work with align with that each quarter.
So I think like one thing that's, well, actually, before we move on, I did want to ask, because again, I had mentioned this before we hit record, but I noticed that your 2023 January and your 2024 January were very different, in that 2023 January revenue fell off a cliff, as it does for many brands. As of course, it's after Black Friday. It's sort of the post-holiday funk. But in 2024, there wasn't as much of a fall off. And in fact, January was one of your bigger months of 2024 as well. So talk to me about like what was put in place there in terms of building the marketing calendar or whatever that allowed January 2024 to be stronger.
Yeah, it was definitely a few things. The main thing in those months was product. So we just had such an improved product selection between the years. One example is we weren't aware of this, but a lot of bridesmaids do their shopping because a lot of you get married in summer months and they start bridesmaid shopping in January. We sort of got inklings from people who sell bridesmaid dresses that this is something we should go after. We didn't have a collection around it. We weren't pushing on it at all, but it's something we gave a go and it pulled off. But it's exactly that. We're fortunate that our product we can send in by air, so our lead times aren't too much, so we can try be reactive, but it's something we talk about internally on how we can try and move fast and have dynamics. But as the business grows, we are just taking these lessons on every year in terms of what's trying to keep our ears to the ground in terms of what does the customer actually want, trying to stay really close to that customer, particularly as we're a small business and we can try and move fast. But when we do that, it's, I don't know, with all these things, sometimes you go in these circles as a business owner, as a CEO, then you understand that product is the most important thing. So I think we just nailed that in those months.
So talk about some of those, your methodology then, or just some of the tools that you use to keep your ear close to the ground in terms of what customers are thinking.
Yeah, so we try to stay very close to our customers in terms of we are 99% of our revenue is D2C. We do have one or two wholesale accounts, but we do events all the time. We have sort of affiliates, ambassadors we work really closely with, and we're trying to understand from them what they want. But equally, we're very lucky that Olivia and a lot of the team, they are the customer. So we're designing into what they want, and they're spending days or hours every single day on social media. They're understanding the trends and they're hopefully ahead of the curve. But then it's just putting that priority in terms of making, from a supply chain point of view, we can be reactive. I don't know if you understand, like some of the fast fashion brands. ASOS is a big UK retailer, and they can bring a product from sort of idea into the office and shot and on the site within 2 weeks. So the biggest players in the market are doing that. We can't be that. We're not that fast, unfortunately, but it's about trying to really try and understand and try just catch that wave. It's easier when there's wind in your sail as opposed to really trying to shell stuff people aren't interested in buying.
Yeah. So speaking of that, like sort of speed of execution, this will be my segue into the next part of the conversation here, which is one thing that was really impressive to me when I was chatting with Joy a little bit about your brand, is your ability to produce creative at scale. So if you, as we mentioned, sort of CTC best practices and running your account on cost controls, one of the fundamental principles there is you have to have the creative volume to support the cost cap. Otherwise, your account isn't going to spend. And of course, your actual ad budget has like almost 10x or something. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, 100%.
So, yeah. So, and part of it is your ability to make, again, what sounds like thousands of creatives relatively quickly. So talk to us about how you produce creative. How do you pull it off?
Yeah. I would like to say we've got it all figured out. But then probably like inside of a lot of brands, the process is constantly changing. At one point, I always think, oh, we've nailed it. This is it. And then for some reason at scale, it breaks. But again, as you mentioned, it is a priority for us internally. And we're aware of you just have to look at our P&L and realize how big of a line item performance marketing is, that we should probably spend some attention here in trying to give you guys what you need to get the best results, or give the brand the best chance of succeeding. We use almost, I don't know, every tactic there is possible, whether that's seeding and then using that actual content, whether that's working with existing customers, using UGC, having a team of sort of video editors who are constantly making iterations of best performers. But I think the biggest unlock for us, we've only sort of started it in the last 12 months, where Olivia, we've sort of been storytelling about her own personal brand and building that alongside the existing brand. Is when we need to shoot content with her, it can just be done here and now. And it's always the way that the best performing content is the one you don't think through. It doesn't have the absolute perfect hook. It's recorded on an iPhone on a selfie and you think that's never going to work. And then it ends up crushing it. So we do try and make and we do understand what works and make educated guesses, but we're probably more than other brands willing to test ads. And we see performance as like exactly what it is, performance. We're not too brand sensitive, but it's been in our benefit, because if you were going to ask, or we run post-purchase surveys, how did you hear of us? Normally the first touch point is some sort of meta ad.
Yeah. So what does like the creative team look like that you have
Yeah,
in-house?
good question. So we currently sit down as sort of like a marketing team. We've got a marketing lead who leads the process, and it's sort of just brain dumping all of the ideas. We have sort of a benchmark of how many concepts we want to produce each month, and it's sort of brain dumping ideas, seeing what's worked for us, seeing if we've got any other crazy ideas, and just trying to brief all of those out. We then have someone who will write all the briefs and find the creators if we're not already existingly working with them. So I suppose it's sort of like creative strategy, and then someone else writing the briefs based on what's existingly worked. But we do give creators a lot of creative freedom. We're not massively particular on, you have to say these words in this way. We want it to be as authentic as possible. From then internally, we've got a couple of video editors we work with, and a videographer, but all of those guys are pretty much full-time but freelance. And then it's just the delivery, and equally graphic design we have full-time just for statics. So it's a relatively small team, but we managed to get enough out there. But yeah, in my head all the time I'm thinking, let's just scale this harder. But as you continue to scale, I can understand how it gets more and more complex.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult problem to solve. And I mean, it sounds like if you're making creative at the volume you are, you're doing pretty well. So talk to me about your answer to that question. Has me curious a little bit about, so to go back to the product development side, obviously you guys have the ability to pivot quickly with this particular product. What is the product design from like conception to execution to distribution? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so we do plan pretty far ahead, just to trying to be ahead of the curve and making sure that we can give sort of its product, it's like time to breathe and time to settle, but it's equally just trying to balance that with being reactive and with understanding, okay, well, there is demand. Or particularly in jewelry, if you can look at the biggest players in the market, like the Cartiers, the Tiffany's, they normally they've got sort of 3 or 4 SKUs which they absolutely nail. And for Cartier, it's the love bangle. Tiffany, they've got these like little heart pendants. So it's just trying to understand, we are putting stuff out, but we do have a few SKUs or products which catch wind, and we really try push them from a marketing perspective. And then, I don't know, a good example for us is engraving, which we brought out. So people can engrave messages onto necklaces or bracelets. And I mean, if you can market that correctly around a Mother's Day, a Valentine's Day, you can normally win. But it's about everything aligning all at once.
So, man, there's a couple of things we could dig into here. Joy, you mentioned 2 brand collabs that you guys, well, that's also part of your sort of organic.
We've tried that out as well. Yeah.
So how's that going?
We've done a couple. I think fortunately, because of all the like organic work we've done around the brand, that people are more aware of us, and other brands are more willing because they can see hopefully the level of content and what we can do for them. It should be everyone should win out of them. We've definitely done, I think we've done 2, one of which was in January this year, and the previous one to that was December. Fortunately for jewelry, it's relatively easy to collab, whether that's changing a box or whether that's producing a special piece. But it's definitely, in my eyes, a great strategy because every party wins. I think the customer loves it, particularly if you can add some urgency in terms of making it limited to 100 pieces, or we released a piece in December, which is every piece said the 1 of 1,000. So it's sort of, once it's gone, it's gone. And it was in a special Christmas packaging box. So it was a great gift. So again, it's just trying to be clever and open about it. But you're seeing it at the top of the market with, I don't know, some of the streetwear brands collabing with Porsche or things like that, things which have never really been done before. The ones who are playing it well and executing it, it's like, whoa, it's powerful. So it definitely is possible. It's on our horizon. We've got a few really cool ones lined up for later this year, some of which I can't talk too much about, but it's definitely part of our strategy. And I would encourage anyone, if they can make it happen, or if they have any other brands on the horizon, like give it a shot. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to move to this section of most pods. When I talk to Taylor, I usually like to end it with him giving pieces of advice, or like really specific practical pieces of advice. And so I think there's a few of those that we can dig out of this conversation. One is like, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned? Let's say since joining Growth Accelerator, since switching over to the CTC methodology, what do you feel like the biggest lesson that you've learned has been?
I would say it's correctly positioning the marketing calendar in terms of if you have a clear understanding of, say, if you're running any particular promos, why you're running them, what the expected impact could be. But we've had months where we'll chat and Joy will sort of tell me, we've built it out in advance, but what our expected revenue would be and what our expected contribution margin would be. And I go, oh, if you're confident, we'll map out daily our expectations and how we'll go and achieve them. And you start thinking and problem solving. And then you end up with, do you know what I mean, less than a 5% delta. And you're like, how did you know? So,
Yeah.
but it's all in, I give the example to my team and we talk about it with Joy. It's the same as if you're trying to lose weight. Like if you're getting on those scales every single day and seeing, okay, where are we down? Why are we down? Oh, well, conversion rate was lagging. Okay, well, why was conversion rate lagging? What can we do to quickly improve that? Or if we couldn't get the spend through on paid, what was the reason? Can we send an extra email to compensate for it? It's really working collectively. I think that's one thing we have done well is Joy is really part of the team. Everyone in the office knows about him and how he contributes, but it's all working together. It's not just staring at paid media and going, you need to do this. It's not just staring at email and going, you need to do this. And it's not just staring at the product team and going, you need to deliver this many products. It's not that simple. It's teamwork coming together, and when one's lagging, trying to help pull the other one up. So I think that's probably the one thing we've done I would say is a big unlock for a lot of brands.
Yeah. So what you're alluding to then, which we haven't really talked about yet, is the way we approach forecasting and the way you guys are approaching forecasting now, which is one of the key parts of the CTC methodology is building out a 12 to 24 month new customer acquisition and retention forecast. And the idea is to not only, so part of it is to hit that forecast or get as closely as possible to it, but then also to have some understanding of what's likely to happen, and then give you the ability to say, if we want to do better than this, or we want to improve on this forecast, here are the things that we need to do. So talk about your approach to when you receive a forecast about, let's say, what's likely to happen in April. What's your thought process in thinking about breaking that, improving on it? And then how do you go about executing on attempting to, say, beat that forecast?
Yeah, I think for me, those who follow Joy, they know that he posts everything on Twitter. So I'm always the guy who's trying to break it in the positive way, in terms of trying to get the best results possible. I know it's like a huge amount of data goes into it, and I've spent a bit of time trying to understand it, but I definitely don't understand it to the depths of him. But yeah, if you're not building out a forecast to that detail or that level, like it is a total game changer for the business, just in terms of clarity of understanding of these are the goals and these are actually how you'll go and hit it. But when we're trying to, again, from the impression of to do what we've never done, we're going to have to, or to get where we've never been, we're going to have to do things we've never done. So our focus is just continuously, and our growth has come from just doing things better. So I think better typically equals bigger. So whether that's improving our emails, whether that's improving how we're launching product, whether that's improving sort of the hype before a promo period, every year, fortunately, the business is just getting better at, say, all of those things and trading the business, and that's leading to the growth. Obviously, we do have a few big swings, which we really go for and try to unlock, which some hit, some don't. So your forecasting can be difficult, but really just trying to incrementally get better sort of every single month and every single year has been our sort of growth trajectory. Whilst it has had some good spikes, it's been pretty steady, which makes it easier to run the business.
Yeah. So I'm curious then, like what was your approach to forecasting prior to joining Growth Accelerator?
Good question. A bit more like just what number do we want to hit? Okay. I mean, I'm sure you guys have it all day long, but particularly with businesses who aren't maybe D2C first, where the CFO goes, okay, well, we need to double top line, and then we need to spend less on paid. And they don't realize that's your biggest acquisition channel, and that's not how paid works. So we were sort of taking educated guesses on what we thought, but they were exactly that. They were guesses. There wasn't enough sort of numerical data. We're now 4 years in, so we don't have a huge amount of back data to go in, and we've probably only had 2 really successful years, or relatively successful years. So we're starting to get better at understanding what the future looks like, but it just adds that clarity, whether that's how you're building your fixed overheads, where you can invest into key marketing outside of performance, and how much inventory you need to purchase. Like all of these things stem from that forecast. Without that, you're flying blind.
Yeah. So then let's kind of go back to that advice piece. So what would you tell somebody who's like in maybe the situation that you guys were in prior to joining Growth Accelerator, maybe at the beginning of the business, let's say you're plateauing at 7 figures, maybe early 7 figures, and you're trying to kind of hit that growth spurt to get you to 10, like what do you feel like is the one thing that you can do tactically that you would suggest a person do in that situation?
Yeah, hopefully you won't consider this too, but I think it is building out some form of forecast, which isn't just a total guess of this is what we would like to be, but is based off exactly that, predicting new customer revenue, sort of, or return customer revenue as a foundation, and then looking at your like an AMER model in terms of predicting new customer revenue. And then once you've got that, just aligning your marketing calendar with that to make sure that's actually achievable and making sure you are delivering upon that daily to hit it. It's exactly like I said, losing weight. Like if you keep stepping on those scales and you keep under, you're not doing something you should be. So it is remarkable, I would say, how accurate the forecast you guys enjoy build. So it scares you once you start getting used to it, but it's a good thing. It adds stability to the business. Obviously, we can hopefully surpass it by doing things we've never done in the past, but it adds a lot of sort of that rocky low, like mid to low 7 figures. Those periods where 1 month you might blow up and the next it falls down, like the January we talked about, they become less frequent. So business feels more steady.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, wise words, Jack. Thank you again for joining us. For those of you who want to check out the Growth Accelerator program, just go ahead and go to commonthread.com. You can hit that hire us button. Let us know you're interested in chatting more about it. We would love to talk to you. I just blanked for a second. Oh, Jack, anything that you'd like to plug? Anything you want to mention?
No, I think, check us out if you're in the market for jewelry. We've got a US warehouse as well. So we got half of our businesses out with you guys, and we're doing more events. We just did one in New York in February. So hopefully growing our presence there as well.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Appreciate the time, Jack. And for everybody listening, take care. We'll talk to you again next week. See ya.